I couldn't give a stuff about Partygate. I just hope it's the end of the party for those ridiculous rules in the first place. Of course, it's a disgrace that staffers at Number 10 gratuitously ignored COVID rules that they were inflicting on us in the first place. But it was ever thus with politicians. One set of rules for them, another set of rules for us. It's the same for the Sunak family when you look at their tax affairs. It's us, the stupid, unthinking, ignorant, unwashed proletariat that must do as we're told and pay our way. Meanwhile, the elites are avoiding taxes, and during lockdown, they're literally carting suitcases of plonk into Number 10 for quiz nights, sing-alongs, and in the case of Matt Hancock, a snog fest in the corridor. They were laughing at us. They were laughing at you. But indignation over Partygate misses the point, perhaps conveniently for some, including the likes of Sir Keir Starmer. This is a man who has been in uproar over Partygate, but who has been the biggest cheerleader for these nonsensical rules in the first place. Partygate is a sideshow, a distraction and a soap opera that the British people can ill afford as we face the biggest cost of living crisis in living memory. Westminster tittle-tattle, point-scoring and calls for high-profile resignations are the last thing we need. In my view, we need to keep our excellent Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who, notwithstanding his own problems this week, saved thousands of businesses and possibly millions of jobs with the furlough scheme. Of course, I was profoundly against lockdowns, but if you're going to have them, then you've got to compensate people. And the furlough scheme, whilst a fig leaf for a failed and ruinous policy of lockdowns, was necessary nonetheless. And whilst I'm furious with Boris Johnson for giving in to the sage scientists, the professors of doom for 2 years, and ignoring his own liberal principles, wandering into a room for 9 minutes and blowing out the candles on a birthday cake is hardly a reckless all-nighter. It's not exactly 24-hour party people. It's hardly crime of the century. The crime of the century were the rules themselves that were so flagrantly broken. And why were those rules broken by those at the heart of government? Because they knew it was all bollocks. The masks, the lockdowns, the social distancing, the bubbles, and the endless testing. The real crime was not Partygate, but the rules in the first place. Wrecking a country and its people and handing colossal debt to future generations, some of whom haven't even been born yet. That was the crime. The real crime was inflicting an unprecedented attack on our civil liberties or bullying people into getting vaccinated just to keep their job. That's what's unforgivable, and that is what should be a resignation matter. But if it was a resignation matter, then it would be Starmer, Johnson, Whitty, Vallance and an entire generation of politicians and so-called health experts that would be for the chop. Trying and failing to control a virus that's going to do what the hell it wants to do, something I pointed out almost 2 years ago, has been the real outrage. Destroying the country and the health and living standards of its people is a hell of a lot worse than red wine and birthday cake. So it's time to move on from Partygate. And it seems I'm not the only one with that view. A poll for the Daily Mail newspaper reveals that Britons believe there are more important things to worry about than Partygate. More than half said the UK needs to move on from the scandal. Well, I agree with the British people, not for the first time. But for us to move on in any meaningful and decisive way, Boris Johnson must make a sworn commitment to never again pursue the folly of trying to control a virus, something we're currently seeing an extreme version of in Shanghai in China, where people are locked in apartment blocks, screaming for food and water, and where officials wearing dystopian hazmat suits are beating dogs and cats to death that are suspected of having COVID. If Boris ends the war on COVID, then he has my support. And if the Chancellor can get his tax affairs in order so he pays his fair share, he should stay too. Because we need one of the most gifted politicians of his generation and a high achiever in his own life at the Treasury. I still fancy Rishi Sunak. I still fancy him for the top job. It's a controversial view, but it's one that I still hold. I've not quite thrown the towel in on that one. But whatever your views on Sunak or Johnson, right now, we need the best people running the country. And I don't want to see people hired and fired based around confected, politically motivated rage. My brilliant colleague Dan Wootton put it so well yesterday. Keir Starmer just said that Brits did the right thing by not going to funerals, not going to weddings, not going to the birth of their own children, not seeing elderly relatives. No, Keir, not doing all of those things was the wrong thing to do. Making these things illegal was inhumane. How right Dan is, and he's back on Monday at 9. Boris Johnson seems to be getting to grips with the Channel migrant crisis, which in my view is a humanitarian crisis. And it's time that we crushed the business model of the evil gangsters who profit from that perilous crossing. And Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak can be a team that steers the powerhouse that is the British economy back to healthy growth, gradually paying down our debts, tackling inflation, and helping the great British public with the cost of living. And of course, Boris has smashed it in relation to Ukraine. On a visit to Kiev recently, he was described by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as a hero. If Boris Johnson sorts out illegal immigration, tackles the cost of living crisis, heals the economy, fights crime, battles extreme political correctness or wokeism as it's known, if he tackles the appalling NHS waiting list, and if he makes it clear that we will never pursue the folly of these COVID measures ever again, then he will be a hero to all. Post-pandemic, post-Brexit Britain can be a fast-growing, dynamic, diverse, creative, happy and successful place. In fact, I'm certain it will be. But it's time to rid Britain of the ghost of COVID, and with that, the threat of any future lockdowns or other damaging and divisive measures to control a virus that the last 2 years have proved couldn't care less what we do. I like this tweet from a lady that follows me on Twitter called MP. Pretty sure she's not an MP, but take a look at this. She's a regular member of the public, I believe, and she tweeted, "I have a cold. The amount of family and friends asking whether I've taken a test is unreal. No, I haven't. No. Why would I? No, no, and no. The ongoing brainwashing with the updating of the endless list of Rona symptoms is totally complete." Couldn't agree with you more. It's time to ditch the failed, ruinous policies of the last 2 years and get back to normal. Not for a few months, but forever. If that happens, it won't be Partygate anymore. It will be party time. And I will drink to that. Cheers and happy Easter.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.